Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Alibi podcast. This is episode 21, and we're still Christmassy. We're still feeling very Christmassy.
Cookies and Christmas vibes.
That's right.
I have sunglasses on because the Christmas lights are so bright.
Is that why that is?
No, it's because my future's so bright.
These are good cookies.
They are. I made
like
them this morning.
Both so domestic.
House husband. Stay-at-home husband for real.
That's right. And, by the way, you did something husbandly recently, but it was not staying at home.
Took my wife to New York
Tell us about New York.
in Christmas time. It's beautiful. They say it's the best time of year to be in New York. And it was great. So they may be right.
Does New York smell better during Christmas time?
You know, since I've not been there, not at Christmas time. Is that light turned on? Or is it dead? Oh, no, it just wasn't on. Okay. Good. Yes, all right. Now we're better lit. Funny, I noticed that with my sunglasses on. Anyway.
Yeah.
New York. Beautiful. I don't know if it normally smells bad, but it didn't smell bad while I was there.
I'm told it always smells bad.
No, it was not bad. It's a beautiful city. I love city life. As someone who's never lived in a city. It's just such a vibe to be able to walk anywhere, and like I went at 10 p.m. and got some pizza.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Awesome.
And any hour of the day, there's all kinds of great food options. One thing that anyone who knows me knows about me is vacation means food.
Right, obviously.
Some people are like, I mean, I've been told this. Sometimes people hear that my biggest thing is the food, and they're like, well, I would want my biggest thing to be like the experiences while I'm there. And I was like, I mean, what you thought the meal was?
Yeah.
Like, that is an experience for me. It's a great experience, which no shade to anyone on either side of the aisle there, but I am a lover of food, and I'm going to get the best food that each city has to offer when I visit.
Yeah, I mean, when people say experiences, like, what do you mean? You mean like you want to see the sights? Like, okay.
No, the
Like,
experience
what?
they're paying money for is in New York. It's Broadway plays, it's museums, stuff like that. In other places, maybe it's an amusement park. Like people will travel to Branson and go to Silver Dollar City.
Museums are not usually that expensive, I don't think.
We went to a museum actually while we were in New York.
How much did it run you?
It was $30 each. So it's not. It feels expensive for what it is, but I will tell you that is significantly cheaper than most of the meals that I bought in New York.
Yeah, $30 is like a slice of pizza in New York. That's crazy.
No, the slices of pizza were super cheap.
No, I'm kidding.
The slices were actually like $3.50. It was the dinners at Michelin star restaurants and the like that were a lot more.
See, that's the stuff you can't get in Kansas City. When I'm traveling, like, I don't want to just go to an amusement park. I mean, I do like amusement parks, but like, I can go to an amusement park here. I can go to a museum here.
Midwest travelers, they go to Branson, they go to Silver Dollar City, they go shopping, they go to the Mall of America further north.
Yeah.
They go to the beach.
Yeah.
And that's a big trip for them. Mm-hmm. And they go, like, I don't know, Eureka Springs is a good one. Omaha to the zoo, like Denver to hike mountains. It's just a different vibe than what I'm doing.
I would like to travel and like go to. Remember when we went to see the small band at the Rhino?
Yes.
I want to go see shows like that at like an entirely different part of the world.
So like super small venues?
Small venue shows, yeah. Because I'm sure like if you're going to like an arena tour, the arena show is not going to be too different from Kansas to New York to Paris, you know? But if you go to like a small indie show, you get to kind of experience the actual culture of the music underground in that city or that country, whatever.
New York has a great space for that, actually. Yeah. There's a street, it's called Bleecker Street, and it's venues and bars and clubs, and it's like an entertainment district, basically, downtown. And it's, I didn't go to any shows, actually. I saw some, like, jazz performers and stuff like that.
People just playing at the bars or whatever.
Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about my. Did you start a timer, by the way?
I did not.
All right, so we're about 4 minutes in. We'll count it. It's good. All right, so let me tell you about some of what I did in New York.
Tell us about it.
So I saw all of the normal touristy things. Won't dwell on those.
Obviously.
Nothing particularly special.
They look like the postcards.
They look like the postcards. Cool to see some of them in person, though.
Right.
Definitely a plus. But we went to Katz's Deli.
Okay.
Which is a famous Jewish delicatessen
Have to.
in New York City. I had the best Reuben I've ever had. And let me tell you, I'll give you the plug. So they told me on, Reddit and TikTok that the way to get the best sandwich there is you let the cutter, who's the guy making the sandwich,
Right.
know that you're going to tip good before he makes the sandwich.
Obviously. Yeah.
So it's a $30 sandwich, which is a lot to start with, but
Sure.
it's huge, so it feels well worth it. I walked up, I put $20 on the counter as the tip already, and I said, I want a Reuben how it comes.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, papi, I got you. Made me a fire sandwich. And before he gets the meat out, and before he's cutting the meat for my sandwich, he cuts me a couple big chunks, puts them on a plate, and lets me eat them while he makes it.
Nice.
And it was so good.
I believe it.
It was amazing. Definitely a standout experience.
That seems like the way to go about anything is, slide it 20 across the table, and I'm going to pay attention,
Yeah, it's like, I
You're
want
gonna
the
get some
best
service.
here. I don't want you to mess around
Take
today.
care of me,
That's right. So after that, I then went and walked around, and this is very much my vibe again. Walked around vintage clothing stores,
Yep.
record stores, bought a couple records and some stuff. Some really cool stuff. One of the vintage clothing stores we went into down there on 2nd Street was like multi-leveled, and like on one of the top levels, they had an old New York City phone booth just sitting in the middle of all the
nice.
clothes.
That's cool.
It was sick. A couple other meals I'll just hit quickly. We went to a Michelin star Indian restaurant. Indian food was not the best Indian food I've had, actually, but the service was wild.
On point.
If you've ever been to a Michelin star restaurant, I'm pretty sure you haven't, because we
have
probably
not
would have
yet.
gone together.
Yeah, not yet. I don't think we have any in KC.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any in Kansas City.
I don't believe so.
If there are, I don't know about them, and they would have to be like pretty far north, I guess.
Probably like the closest thing is like the Gordon Ramsay restaurant.
Yeah, they have a
I think we
Hell's
got
Kitchen here.
in a casino or something in
Yeah.
like by Missouri.
So the attentiveness is just wild. Like they say, if you drop a fork in a Michelin star restaurant, they will come grab it for you immediately and then give you a new fork.
Right.
I 100% believe that would have happened. Like they would have noticed immediately if I did something like out
Drop
of
a
turn.
crumb just to watch
Yeah.
it, sweep it up.
Oh yeah, they come sweep up your crumbs, all that stuff. We went to a wonderful Italian restaurant. Mm-hmm. We went to
Hold on.
Yes.
Let's not just gloss over this. The Italian restaurant, compared to the place we had in on the hill in Missouri, what do you think?
In St. Louis,
Yes.
St. Louis has a Italian
good Italian
community. It was very good. I don't know if I can make a valid comparison because I actually had like a solid marinara in St. Louis.
Right.
And for anyone who doesn't know, our mama,
She make a good marinara.
Italian mama, she make a
She
good,
make it right.
she make a mean marinara.
She make it right.
So we have a pretty high standard for marinara.
Right.
In St. Louis, the marinara was up there,
Yes.
with hers in terms of like
This is standard.
This is a good like, as Mama would say, a robust sauce.
robust. Yeah.
I didn't get a marinara at this restaurant. I got a seafood bowl with black squid ink pasta, which is fun and
Yeah.
yummy. And it had, scallops, calamari, whole squid,
Right.
all the yummy stuff. And it was good. It was actually, so I can compare that to when I had a similar seafood pasta in Florida, also with fresh seafood.
Yeah.
And I liked it in Florida, but now looking back, having had this, I'm like, oh, like they were kind of overcooked in Florida for real. Like this one
yeah?
was so just tender and flavorful.
Interesting. Nice comparison there.
Yeah. So yeah, we also went to a Korean barbecue in Koreatown. And we went to a couple other nice restaurants. We also went to like a dinner theater type experience. It's called Fork and Film. They were viral on TikTok. Essentially, the premise is they show a movie, in this case, The Grinch with Jim Carrey.
Right.
And then there's a menu inspired by the film, kind of to the vibe of if you see food on the film, on the screen in the film, they will bring you a food that is basically that.
I guess a little weird for The Grinch, probably.
Yeah.
Food.
It's like they have it's called hazelnut stew or something like that in Dr. Seuss stuff. Mm-hmm. They had a stew, but it was not gross, like hazelnut stew is obviously. It was like a green from food coloring, I assume, but like a chicken rice stew thing, and then there's like puddings when they have a pudding tasting in the movie, which interestingly were savory puddings. Definitely a weird decision there, but
that's gross.
There was a lot of sweet foods already in the meal. One thing I'll say is, as much fun as it was, Ella, my wife, really loved it. She really, really, really enjoyed it. And I had a great time. I really liked it. It didn't feel like it was built like a menu. It felt like they kind of just were bringing you the foods from the movie, which some people probably like. But I wanted more of a menu inspired by the movie in terms of like, I want an appetizer, I want a couple of courses, and then I want my sweets at the end. Whereas they were kind of like savory, sweet, drink, savory, drink, sweet, like kind of a flow to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you there. I would prefer a more curated, more thought out, more of a blend of the culinary world with the cinematic world versus just kind of throwing some food at it.
Right. But that's actually reminiscent of the vibe of this. Like like I said, I went to Michelin star restaurants. I'm going to these gourmet restaurants. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of vibe that I was expecting. And it wasn't that. And it was okay with me that it wasn't that.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't mind if it had been that. Right. Instead, it felt more like kind of a home-cooked idea that like anybody could do, instead of being something that like really takes a lot of thought and effort and culinary expertise. But it was a great experience. Shout out to them. Left them a great review.
Good for them.
All that good stuff. But that's enough about New York. I had a thought though on my return journey.
Tell me about it.
When I loaded up into an airplane flying from New York to Kansas City on a random Saturday morning, and they were like, however many people fit in a plane.
Right.
Hundreds of people, right?
Of course.
All also flying from New York to Kansas City on this random Saturday.
Yeah.
And it made me think about the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people flying from any given place to any other given place every single day.
I mean, yeah.
Enough to keep this billions of dollars in the air industry. And that's not something that existed 150 years ago.
Right.
Somehow we got from the point of flying does not exist to we fly thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the world every single day. What kind of societal acceptance for new technology is that?
I mean, yeah. I think it's kind of reminiscent of just a generation. Like when a new generation comes, it just happens that way, Like you and I, we grew up in a time like we had flights. We just did. Our parents had flights. We didn't.
It's been a thing that's existed.
Yeah, it's been a thing that's existed. And, I mean, maybe our grandparents would have been a little bit more hesitant. I don't know.
I don't know, though. I know people who have never flown.
And there are some people who are just afraid of it. I don't know. It just never struck me as scary. I just, we have flights.
Yeah, it's not scary to me. It's just wild that... I'm just thinking about the scale of it.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
Knowing that, before she met me, my wife only flew, once or twice ever in her life. And we've flown probably 5 or 6 different flights.
I mean, only flown once or twice before you met her, too.
Only a couple times.
You were both young.
It's true. Yes, only a couple times. But more recently. You and I went last summer.
Yeah. And I'm going to go again this spring. And
and I keep taking trips now, so it's like if I get free or cheap flights... not free yet.
You gotta go somewhere.
Yeah, it's just you do it yet. Yeah, I'm on a rewards program, so I will get free flights later. But anyway, I do a lot of flying now, comparatively, And so I'm seeing all these people every time. So many people.
Right, yeah.
Like, how are this many people doing this all the time?
I thought it was interesting. I can go and, like, be like, I need to fly to this place on this day, and there'll just be a flight to that place on
Every
that day.
day.
Like, how is there a flight? How is there, like, a flight from How can I get from Kansas City to Spain any random given day?
Any day.
Any day of the year. I can just go from this place to that place. Like, how is there always... That's crazy. Exactly. I mean, obviously, there's, like, connecting flights and stuff, but it's, like, within 2 or 3 points of contact. Exactly. There's a flight anywhere. That's definitely pretty wild. But let's move on.
Yes, sir.
From travel. Something else that's kind of wild, I guess. Or interesting. Let's talk about music. I was thinking about this the other day. No, I don't know necessarily no particular reason. But we know that when you want to have like a smash hit record in the music industry, there's a specific way to go about it. You can't just have a billion stream on Spotify record. You can't just have a 6 billion across all platforms kind of record. You know, you don't get a song that goes that big, and you don't get a song that makes $100 million.
Like just accidentally.
It doesn't just accidentally happen.
Yeah.
And now that the internet exists, you can go viral. It does happen. You can get a bunch of views. You can get a song that kind of blows up, but it's gonna blow up inside a very small ceiling. And it feels really good for an independent artist. But there is a specific way to get a number one record. You know what that is?
Tell us.
You pay for it.
Yes, sir.
You got to buy it. There is only one. The way to get a number one record is you got to buy it. And it's really interesting to think about because there's a lot of, there's this rise of independent artists and a lot of people trying to make a living for themselves without major labels or anything, but none of them have a number one song. You don't get like a Billboard number one song as an independent artist. It's not going to happen for Connor Price because he's not going to pay for the streams. It's not going to happen for Russ because he's not going to pay for the streams.
And Russ is someone who has been very open about this and knows what's going on.
Russ is the one who tells us.
Yeah, he talks about this.
Russ is probably actually like the highest level of independent artist because he can be a label in of himself. I don't know. Anyway, he can act as a label.
Right.
Like he knows the right people. He has the industry connections. He has the money. If he wants to throw $1 million at a song, he can have a number one song if he wants to. He knows what to do and he has the money and the means to do it, but he just is at a place where he doesn't need to push to have a giant stream song
and
like
he
that.
Has strong feelings about the artistic integrity of that.
He has feelings about the integrity of buying streams and manufacturing a hit for his audience. He wants to be authentic in that way. And it's just kind of interesting to me that even in this world where we've come to a place where it's more accessible than ever to be a successful musician or a successful music artist, it's more gatekept than ever to be at the highest level.
I don't want to be pessimistic about it or anything, but the labels built an industry that required them.
Yeah. And they say the age of labels is dying, which is kind of true, but I think...
Only to a certain point. As long as they control certain avenues, they will keep themselves in business.
Yeah, that I can recall, I don't think there has ever been a truly independent, like I don't have any affiliation with a label, never have, number one on a Billboard Hot 100. Like number one single. It doesn't happen as far as I know. And I'd have to do some more research, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Little fun fact about the music industry, I guess.
Speaking of music.
Yes.
At the intersection of music culture and Christian culture, something happened this weekend. Rolling Loud, big festival. For anyone who doesn't know, big hip-hop festival, one of the biggest in the world. For the first time, invited some Christian hip-hop artists to come and perform on the main stage in an early midday set. As someone myself who used to be very, very tapped into the Christian hip-hop space and now does not listen very often to hip-hop at all, but specifically Christian hip-hop, it's a very small portion of my daily music diet. But I wanted to celebrate this because I like things that push forward Christian culture and Christians in culture.
Right.
Particularly when they level up height of, just artistic integrity and artistic quality, and they're just heightening the ceiling of actual art, not just Christian art, when they break out of that box that has historically been Christian art. And this is why we celebrated Jesus Loves You being at Complex Con recently. It was a big thing that was really exciting for us. So Rolling Loud had a lineup of, it was 5 or 6 Christian hip-hop artists come, and it was an hour set split between them, curated by Rodney Jerkins and his collective, I guess. And it was super cool that they're able to be there. But unfortunately, it fell flat for the most part.
Yeah.
I watched the live stream on YouTube, which I believe was coming from like Amazon Music's stream.
Yeah.
And it just felt like there was just a sad mix of artists not being ready for that level of prime time on stage.
Sure.
And tech's not taking good care of the artists.
Yeah, I think there's this interesting space that we're at in Christian hip-hop right now, where the biggest artists or the most poppin' artists, like the people who are creating the new wave of Christian hip-hop, are new generation artists who don't have experience in traditional things like shows. So when it comes to these artists, like they have their own little shows or their own little festivals, right? But none of them are going to be prepared to show up at Rolling Loud. And
it's not saying none. Some of them are.
Well, some of them are, but very few of them have the chops in that specific field to kind of show up and shut down the stage like someone like Lecrae could actually do it. Someone like KB could probably do it.
Well, I want to give props to Indie Tribe. They did it.
Indie Tribe is pretty good. Indie Tribe
knows what they're doing. John Keith and No Big Deal were both there, and they both did a great job. For them, the problem was not that they did a bad job on stage. For them, the problem was just that the audience wasn't ready for it. Like, the audience didn't actually care
morning or
that
afternoon
much.
Sets at festivals like that are just not going to be.
They're already not good, but then for you to be the only Christian act at a mainstream secular event like that, it's just already a cold crowd. So props to them for showing up and doing that. I'm sure that was hard to do a good job. Indie Tribe, John Keith, and No Big Deal, they did a great job. Some of the earlier artists, I'm thinking of Caleb Gordon right now, really, really struggled, and I'm not sure it was all his fault. I don't think he probably had a good in-ear mix, if he even had in-ears at the time, like working. And it feels like maybe the techs there at Rolling Loud weren't taking the steps to take care of the artists like they should.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I felt like that part was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Not a great look. But on the bright side, No Big Deal gave a bold, clear, articulate Jesus Christ is Lord gospel presentation on the main stage at Rolling Loud, and that is something that we can celebrate.
Yeah, that's a win. And I think the fact that it happened, it'll happen again probably now.
Hopefully.
I think it kind of opened a door for Christian sets at festivals in a way that I haven't heard of before. And it's possible that it just isn't accepted and it has happened before, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
One other small note that I won't dwell on about that is one of the artists that was supposed to be like the headliner to close them out was Hulvey, and
Hulvey needs to stop being platformed, guys.
Yeah. I mean,
no shade to Hulvey.
He seems like a great guy.
Yeah, he seems
people who know him seem to really like him, but I don't like his music.
It's not good music.
And I don't feel like it's a good representation of Christian hip hop.
It's not a good representation of hip hop at all. Just generally.
We won't hate too much, though.
If you want to show someone who likes hip-hop, Christian hip-hop, and be like, oh, check out this Christian hip-hop. If it's a hip-hop head and you show him Hulvey, is that really going to impress him? You know, is that really
He doesn't have the rapping chops. He doesn't have the singing chops.
He doesn't have any chops. He has, CHH behind him to some degree, but I don't know. I feel like
he has the crossover appeal from Christian hip-hop to Christian radio.
Yeah. That's a niche that you don't need to impress.
I've seen him live. I've seen him perform live for he opened for, I think it was Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham. He was the opener, and he did the same song for like 12 minutes of his 15-minute set. And it's just this chorus repped. And it resonates with a very, very certain audience that clearly there's money in it for his record label,
Right.
to reach that audience, that Christian radio K-Love audience, but I just don't feel like it elevates hip hop in any way.
Yeah, definitely not.
But enough about that. I believe you have a philosophy
Before we move on, though, I checked for independent songs to hit number one on the.
Was it the
Billboard
banjo
100.
guy?
Oliver Anthony.
Yes.
There was one. There was actually like three, but one of them,
One that's
Oliver
notable.
Anthony, is probably about the only one. There was one in like 1994 or something.
Sure, yeah, long time ago. I almost said something about him. I couldn't remember his name, though.
Oliver Anthony, and it's not a banjo, it's like a steel guitar, but
It was the Richmond, North of Richmond song. Yeah.
Richmond, North Richmond debuted number one on the Billboard Hot 100, but I will point out that as far as streams go, it fizzled out.
Oh, yeah. No, it did.
Fizzled out. It only has about 237 million streams on Spotify, which is huge. But remember, big songs get 1 billion streams on Spotify.
Anymore, yeah.
That's how it
Major
works.
label-backed artists will get 1 billion streams.
If you want like a giant song, it will get 1 billion streams. It'll go number one or close to it.
And I think he
like
turned down that. It could have gone there.
It
He
could have
had
gone
the
there. He
initial...
didn't. And that's what I'm saying. You got to have that push from the budget and the marketing and the label. You got to go on the talk show. You got to do a Hot One segment. You know, there's so many things you got to push that single. And that's where the record labels come in and their connection. And that's where Oliver Anthony couldn't maintain it. And by the way, he's fallen out of favor. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
Moving on. I do have a philosophy quote. Last week, we talked about the philosophy quote and how it wasn't necessarily maybe something we agree with or something, but it made me think I should bring a philosophy quote from a philosopher that I don't agree with.
All right.
So I brought a philosophy quote from Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Rousseau. Anyway.
French?
I think he's actually not from France, but he died in France.
Okay.
He was like, it's like Belgium or something.
In French culture.
Anyway, very impactful philosopher. He thinks that basically his premise is that man is. Actually, I'm just going to read it, and we'll break it down later. But here is the quote. This is kind of an abridged version. I came up with the original too, but this is the abridged version, I guess. God makes all things good. Man meddles with them, and they become evil. He forces one soil to yield the products of another, one tree to bear another's fruit. He confuses and confounds time, place, and natural conditions. He mutilates his dog, his horse, and his slave. He destroys and defaces all things he loves. All that is deformed and monstrous, he will have nothing as nature made it, not even man himself, who must learn his places like a saddle horse and be shaped to his master's taste like the trees in his garden. Yet things would be made worse without this education, and mankind cannot be made by halves. Under existing conditions, a man left to himself from birth would be more a monster than the rest. Basically, the point that Rousseau likes to make, and that's just like the introduction to a book, but is that humanity is shaped by outside forces. You got to teach someone to be bad, basically. Like people, he believes that people are born mostly good, and you can't interfere with that. Otherwise, they will turn out to be bad. And he believes that humans have the self-destructive tendency to, create a society that leads everybody to be bad, which, in part, I agree with. The problem is, further along in this book, and it's Email on Education, he comes up with this idea that led to what we now have as gentle parenting.
Sure.
This idea that kids, if they do not have a bad example, will not do bad things. If you just show the kid an example of being kind and generous and thoughtful, then the kid will be kind and generous and thoughtful. But that's not true. People are born with a sin nature. People are just bad at heart. They're born with something in them that tells them to be bad. You don't have to teach them to be selfish.
Sure.
You don't have to teach a child to hit you when you do what he doesn't want. You don't have to teach a kid to bite. You don't have to teach a kid to run away, There's just things you don't have to teach. They're in there. And there's this idea that became prevalent because of this philosopher where you should just, don't ever hit your kid, don't ever discipline your kid, don't ever raise your voice or give them any kind of example of anything negative. Just be that positive influence and the kid will be positive. That's not true. Your kid's going to bully you. Just so you know.
Jean-Jacques' problem is that he wants to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
He wants to somehow believe that humans are basically good and children will not be bad unless someone makes them bad. And also that humans are so bad that they corrupt everything.
Yeah.
Including each other. And when he starts to explore the concepts of it, it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because he knows that you have to have influence. And he said, under existing conditions, a person would just be bad. Like, you've got to show someone a good example for them to be good, I guess. I guess it's just the idea that humans are entirely created by their circumstances, which is partially true, but it also is mixed with this idea that humans are good enough that without a bad example, they won't be bad.
Yeah, the trouble word there is entirely. Mm-hmm. It's a mix. He's not entirely wrong, but he's really not right.
All good philosophers, everything that sticks has a bit of truth in it.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah,
but
all philosophy is interpretation of something somewhere that is at its root truth.
Right. Anyway, let's
close us out. To close us out today, an indie band of the week.
I'm gonna eat this cookie.
Or indie artist. Today we have Bodhi.
Oh boy.
Bodhi is a name that a lot of people may know from.
I've heard of Bodhi.
The Voice.
The Voice. Yes.
Yes. He made waves in Christian circles by singing "Gratitude" by Brandon Lake.
Good song.
On a recent season finale, banger song. Yes. Post The Voice, Bodhi has a super trendy style and branding, and he's releasing some alt-rock vibe music.
Fun.
He's very creative and energetic, and he's bringing a super dope level of creativity and crossover appeal to Christian music right now. He is able to have some of that radio appeal in Christian music, because of The Voice and singing "Gratitude" and being someone that was on TV that the TV crowd really likes, while also the way he dresses is not like other Christian radio artists. The way that his music just feels a lot more edgy, fresh, and with it than a lot of Christian radio does.
Nice.
And also, there's songs by him that, while Christian adjacent in message, are not too overt, I think, to have major crossover appeal. I think he could be a big artist. If you're going to check him out, I'd recommend starting with his songs R.I.P. and Liar Liar.
Nice.
And with that,
that's the end of the AlibiPod for this week.
And we will see you next week for our final episode of Christmas Cheer.
Bye-bye.